no money coming in. Why is NNPC not able to bring in dollars? I'm sorry, this is the question that cost me my job. I will continue asking this question until NNPC is fixed or until I die. Where are the dollars? We need to shine light on NNPC. The finance minister cannot tell you because he doesn't have a metering system that reports to him. The finance minister cannot tell you that today, this is how many barrels of oil that we produce and exported. He can only rely on NNPC telling him. Those barrels are revenue, they belong to finance. We've been talking about this for 10 years. We need a metering system. The finance ministry needs to know how much oil we are producing every day, how much oil we are selling, and where the money is going. Because if you don't fix the leakages in that system, if you don't fix the revenue, the dollar revenue issue, you will never fix the exchange rate problem. Oil is not going to grow our GDP. I've always said that. Oil, I mean, if you took out all the oil in Nigeria today and sold it, it would raise our per capita income to maybe $4,000. We won't even be a middle income country. Oil will never make us rich, but it is working capital. It is working capital. It is a lubricant for our import dependent economy. And we cannot afford to continue producing the oil and not seeing the revenue. We are no longer paying subsidies. So where are the dollars? Before it was under recovery. Now we don't have under recovery. Where is the money? Just the issue I raised for which I was suspended. You can suspend me again. Okay? But it's an issue that this country must address. NNPC is the most opaque oil company in the world. When I was in the central bank for 15 years, they had not been audited.
And indeed, let's look at how to, as the former CBN governor says, shine light on the NNPCL. How can we bring more light in there? They do have a published account. They published their account to talk about the profits that they had as at December the 31st, 2022. We're looking in-depth into that. To help us all of this, an in-depth analysis of the published NNPCL account, so the period ended December 2022, we have Dr. Onoha Nachi, Managing Partner, DPH Investment, and a Policy Analyst. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Nigerians.
Let's start with that statement from the former CBN governor. It says, why is the NNPCL not able to bring in dollars?
First, the structure of NNPC could answer that question much better. He also mentioned for over 2 decades, there was no audited account of NNPC. But today, we can see we have an audited account. So we have something that we can question, we can query, and then from there, take it up to other things. This is the first step in the right direction, being able to really publish your account, and then so that people can say, hey, this is where we are, and what next do we need to do? And once those things are put in place, it becomes easier to analyze, it becomes easier to say, okay, this is where you're doing right, this is where you're doing right. So looking into the account they presented, I looked at first, when you pick an account, when you pick an audited report like that, you look at who prepared it first, so that you know the credibility that goes with it. Mm-hmm. And it was prepared by 3 different bodies and with good reputations. You can fault them. They took, despite they were engaged to do that, they did not hide anything. They brought out everything as it should be. So it was a very clear showcase of NNPC. It gave us that opportunity to now start to compare apple to apple, orange for orange. banana for banana, and look at other national oil companies in the world, the Aramcos, the Petronas, the Petrobras, the Qatar Energies. And when you do those comparisons, you'll be able to say, okay, are we in the right direction or not? So that alone will tell us. I leave it there. So.
Okay, let's look at those accounts. You talked about the people that prepared it, 3 people. And from that account, the NNPC talks about some huge profits that have come into the accounts. And we're talking about, for that period ended as at December the 31st, 2022, we see a profit for the period, for the group, 2.523 trillion naira, right? I'm hoping I'm reading this very well. But for the company itself, 1.992 trillion naira. That says a lot. That means they were able to do some good business, even with the level of oil theft in the country.
You make me just laugh about it. Now, NNPC numbers, if you look at it from the point of view looking at NNPC, you kind of will clap for them and give them an applause. But when you do that comparison of apple to apple, I've taken time to look at the numbers and put it into perspective. From their declarations as of that time, they are saying their total operating profit was about $1.6 billion in dollars. And they say their total revenue is about $20.44 billion, which is about 8.82 trillion naira. And they are saying their total asset, from the audited account, their total asset is 58.65 trillion, which is about $136 billion. At operating margin, if you take these calculations and put it, you now realize they were having 6.8% operating margin. And the asset turnover ratio, which indicates the asset you have, how well you've been able to use it to generate more money, to generate this, is about 14.7%. This is a summary of what they presented. Now, if you look further down into it, you realize that the proven reserve of a country like Nigeria is about 26 billion barrels. That's a proven reserve, what we have on ground. Now, let me take you to Petrobras. Petrobras proven reserve is 10.47 billion, which is far, far less than. Nigeria proven reserve is almost triple of Petrobras proven reserve. But can we take Petrobras and compare their revenues with the Nigerian one? So that will give us a clear one. Now, while NNPC was busy declaring operating profit as $1.61 billion, Petrobras was declaring $57 billion. I don't know how you compare that apple to apple. $1.67 billion against $57 billion. Why the total revenue of NNPC at the same period in time was reading $20.44 billion, Petrobras, with a lesser profit oil reserve, was doing $124 billion. How do we compare that? And you also look at their total assets. Their total asset is about $187 billion. Well, the NNPC total asset is 136. So with these numbers put in place, you now see that they have operating margin of about 45%. You cannot compare operating margin of 7.8 and operating margin of 45%. You actually know one is a failure and one is a success. And you can also not compare the turnover ratios of how well they use their assets. Their turnover ratio of how well they use the asset is 66.3, while our turnover ratios of how well we use the asset is 14.7. This is where we begin to compare apple to apple, and it will give us sense. And you can still roll the same data back from Petrobras to Petronas. You can roll it back to Qatar Energy. You can roll it back to Pemas of Mexico. So you begin to know this comparison. Let me take you back to maybe Petronas or Qatar. Let me do Qatar. Qatar operating margin, operating profit was 26.7 billion as compared to the 1.6 that we have. And we have a higher proven reserve than them. And you can also look at our revenue at 20.4 against their revenue of 53.8. So the comparison is something that we just have to question and then begin to say, okay, but now you have made this thing available. I appreciate that it's available. That's the first part of interest. We have something to talk about. We have something to look at it. Because for me, analyzing this matter, I would take at it from the comparative analysis. I look at it from that point. I look at it from another point of their revenues, expenditures, and I also look at it on how NNPC has affected our foreign exchange inflow and the federation revenue also. So when I look at it from that 3 points of view, I'll be able to make typical analysis. And one interesting thing that you see in that, which made me even question NNPC in detail. Myself, I'm a petroleum economics. I did a PhD in petroleum economics, so I can understand data like this, I can speak to it. When NNPC, in their own audited report, says that 51% of their revenue is from downstream, is from selling PMS to me and you. Okay, now I know why we pay so much for it. Now I know why we pay so much for it. Because it's your primary source of revenue. Whereas if you take the other national oil companies, their PMS sales constitute just single digit of their revenue source. But yours is 51% of your revenue source. So you are actually not doing anything. You actually have not taken the bull by the horn. You are not increasing your asset base. Neither are you enhancing the existing asset base. So you're just, okay, let me import PMS, sell to them, and that's your source of revenue. And that is a call for concern.
You know, the former CBN governor talked about the NNPC being the darkest oil company in the world. There is a school of thought that believes that when it was transiting into a PCL or PLC, what should have happened was more or less like redeploy everybody there and employ fresh hands in order to clean up whatever mess they might have been. Now, we're grateful that we're seeing a document that we can look at, but you're still questioning the document that has been put together by 3 reputable organizations. Is there a point where we can say, okay, this is what to do?
The organizations that did the audit report stated it as it is. There was no cosmetics. Like I just pointed, if you say your revenue is coming from sales of PMS and coal, from your downstream, not from your upstream. Upstream is where the revenue should come from.
Indeed.
Indeed. And your 51%, it means, are you a downstream company or you're really a group or not? No. One source does not feed a group. It doesn't have total capacity that have been mortgaged is 335,000 barrels per day production. And I asked myself, okay, Neta, let's assume I'm talking to you. You know, as a lecturer, when you teach in class, you break it down. Let's say I'm talking to you as a layman.
I am a layman.
Okay. I'm paying $1 billion with 35,000 barrels. And I have to now pay 1.76 with 300,000 barrels. Does that ratio make sense? Even if I'm paying $2 billion, it should be that 35 times 2. But I'm not paying it with 300 barrel production. Hello, can they give us the details of that? Even if you're saying 300,000 barrels per production, for how long? 35,000 barrel production, for how long? So that we really would identify the quantity of crude that you're paying with this. Because if we know the quantity and multiply with market price, you now see that what you're paying maybe up to $15 or $20 billion based on the value of the crude. It looks very simple. Because that same case is what is applicable to the Afri-Exim facility. They went ahead to take $3.3 billion facility from Afri-Exim. And again, they did forward sale obligation. And in their forward sale obligation, it was 90,000 barrels per day. But they have not told us. We don't know. That's the part that's paining me. It's not contained in that report, so we'll still question that report. How long is this daily production obligation subject to? So if I take my 35,000 and I take my 300,000 and I take my 90,000, total, they have mortgaged 425,000 crude production per day in their forward sale. Later, let's bring it closer. If I take the current market price, let me discount the fractions of it. 425,000 has been mortgaged, and I take the current market price and I discount it and I put it at $80. Shey, per barrel. In a day, it's going to give me $34 million, and in a month, it's going to give me 1.20 billion. In a month,
yeah,
that's what it's going to give.
Dr. Nachi,
have mortgaged. If these dollars were entering federation revenue, there will be no shortage of dollars to meet our forex obligation, but it's not entering.
Well, the one question that a number of people have also asked, yeah, if you can hear me, Dr. Nachi.
This NNPC.
Can you hear me? My apologies, Dr. Nachi, for butting in. So that question remains. Where are the dollars? Yes. Let's add to the figures and the issues you are raising with this one. One of the issues that's also been pointed out from some other analysis is that the issues that you have raised, the dollar rates that you have raised, are not the only income of the NNPCL. For instance, someone is saying here that one of the things that might have escaped us as a people is that post-PIA, NNPCL receives 30% of PSC profit oil and gas as management fee. It is also scheduled to receive 20% of NLNG dividend and 35% of JV profit oil for NNPCL's reinvestments. I don't know if these issues have been captured in the report that you have seen. But the question that I want to ask you, Dr. Nachi, is, given all that you have spoken about, straight up, is NNPCL profitable as it is being run right now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now, Doctor?
Yes.
Yeah. So the question that I'm asking you straight up is NNPCL, as it is currently being run, a profitable company? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
He's asking.
Yeah, profitable. That's the first question. Okay. Let me respond to that first. If NNPC is profitable or not, without missing a word, if I'm the owner of NNPC, will I keep the same management? Will I keep the team that is running it at top management? The answer is capital no. And is NNPC profitable as a business for me if I'm...
Yeah, we'll come to the people running it. But the question I'm asking is whether or not, as it is currently being run, it is a profitable venture.
I'll try to answer your question. So I start by the people, because it's the people that is running it as it's being run. So it's the people that is running it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you...
honest answer.
Yes. I was going to ask you another question about the people, because the CFO of NNPCL has been quoted to say that the NNPCL remitted zero allocation to the Federation account in 2022. So that's why I said I wanted to leave the people out first. So as a company, as it is currently being run, if you say it is not profitable, then you can speak to the people what needs to be done, what is wrong, and what needs to be done so that we can run it as profitably as it should be run. Please go ahead, Dr. Nachi.
Okay. Okay, let me answer your question clearly. First, NNPC is not profitable. Clearly, it's not profitable when you look at it and you do apple-to-apple comparison. Before, people were unable to clearly make this statement because you had no data owned by them. Now we see data owned by them, so we can use it to make the comparison. And I will say clearly, without any reservations, that current NNPC is not profitable. Clearly, but speaking to it, I will speak to it to the management, to the people that runs NNPC, please. And like I was giving you details about the expenditures that NNPC incurred. It's a profit and loss business. Once your revenue and your expenditures can no longer tally, you are lost. Just like the CFO said, they did not remit anything to the Federation account in 2022. And it is that same 2022 that they declared 2.5 trillion profit. And why is it that they did not remit anything? Because of the accrued liability that was 2.15, which has been explained. So it is clearly obvious that yes, because most times they enter into investment decisions that are very critical, and I would say it didn't follow the real process. And that's why I asked that questions. Like I talked about the Dangote investment, the Afrexim borrowing and all that. I said, who did the evaluation to determine that? Who took that investment disclosure? That decision for investment, who took it? What was the level of disclosure that was made available? Who authorized the due diligence? What, can we see the report of the due diligence of such investment before you can conclude on that? So I will clearly say and state it categorically that yes, NNPC, based on this audited report made available, is not profitable at all, at all.
Would you then say or call for some kind of unbundling? Because some who have looked at the papers, the data released by NNPCL, also said that in the 2021 report, 21 separate audited financial reports were made available. But in this current one, just one lump of report, all the reports for the various business interests under the NNPCL were lumped into one report. Would you say then that it's time for us to be looking at unbundling the NNPCL so that it can be managed separately and hopefully be a little more profitable?
As we speak, I will say NNPC is fully unbundled already, so there's nothing to unbundle again. What they presented was a group report. At the group report, you see the individual contributions into the group report. That's why the report clearly says that their downstream contributed 51%. They indicated that, which is the ability to buy PMS and diesel and sell and supply and all that. Their downstream contributed that aspect. So it means the other units, either they are renewable, they are power, they are this thing that they involve, contributed 49%. And I'm saying, stating it categorically, that is unacceptable condition. Downstream cannot contribute 51% in a group like this. When you compare it to other organizations, when you compare it to, it means that particular downstream is a live wire. And who is paying that bill that makes the downstream to contribute that? It is me and you, because we buy the PMS at a very high price. If the upstreams were doing well, if their gas sections were doing well, if the other investment were doing well, definitely our PMS cost will not be as high as this.
So going forward, Dr. Nachi, what should the president be doing right now? There are a number of people, you have raised very vital questions, particularly concerning the investments of the NNPCL. And a number of questions need to be asked. Who should be answering those questions? The Afrexim loan, for instance, people are asking if it was intended to ease the pressure on the Naira, where are the dollars? Again, it goes to that question. Can you guess where are the dollars? And who should be asking that question? Go ahead, Dr. Nachi, if you can hear me.
Okay, the question only goes to one person, though. The president is the Minister for Petroleum Resources. There's no any other person. Whoever he engaged to walk around that, they are the one that owes that to answer that question to Nigerians. But if you ask me, there are key questions I want NNPC to look at. Let me just take NNPC in the past 10 years, from 2014 to now. Can they tell Nigerians, if they say they are profitable, if they say they are doing well, how many foreign direct investment deal has been closed by NNPC? How many investment decisions has been taken and concluded in NNPC? That alone, the answer is 0. So you cannot be profitable. So NNPC should move to the point where they are closing more transactions, more deals. And that is one that has foreign direct investment and the dollars could be seen. That is one. 2, NNPC, can they give us an answer? For the past 10 years, the new exploration discoveries that they have done, you realize they've done none. It is when you do more exploration discoveries that you increase your reserve base and you begin to increase your resources around that your reserve base and your revenue will increase.
Dr. Naji, we'll have to leave it at this point. I'm sorry to really budge in, but we'll have to leave it at this point. And we'll definitely come back to this matter of looking at the NNPC account again. We've had Dr. Onwa Nachi, Managing Partner, DPH Investment, and a policy analyst. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
We have